Okay, for this project, what we're going to do is use this picture of these rolling hills at sunset. We're going to use this picture of the moon, and we're going to use this picture of a tree silhouette in order to create this image right here. So we're going to be manipulating the color. We're going to be playing around, especially with shadows and some glow effects in order to create a sense of depth in this picture that otherwise wouldn't be here in building a composite. So these are also going to be compositing techniques. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new Instagram-sized image. We're going to go 1080 by 1080, hit create, and our first step is going to be to go to File, Open in Place, and bring in our hills.jpg picture. Or if you have it on your desktop, you can just sort of drag it on in. It is a 1:1 aspect ratio, just like our canvas, so it should fit just fine. Commit the change by pressing that button up there. And the first thing that we're going to do is add a layer, adjustment layer. So we're going to go to Layer, Layer Styles, and we are going to go ahead and on that layer, one moment, new adjustment layer, sorry, not layer style, layer, new adjustment layer. We're going to go to hue, saturation, and we're going to pull out some of the color in this. So we don't want this to be quite so vibrant. So we're going to sort of tone this down. We don't have to go all the way. We can keep some of the color in there, but I'm down at about -75 or so. The next thing that we're going to do is create a new layer. And I'm going to create a linear gradient that goes from like a dark blue to like a almost black blue. So on my foreground color, I'm choosing this navy. On my background color, I'm staying in that blue family, but I'm almost black, but still some sense of blue. And I'm going to grab my gradient tool right here, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag a linear gradient like so. Then what I'm going to do is come down to my color blend mode, and it's just going to sort of turn everything this bluish hue, and I've desaturated it as well. So now it sort of looks more like nighttime. I'm also going to go to Layer, and then New Adjustment Layer, and I'm going to go to my exposure. And I'm just going to tone down the exposure as well. I'm just going to, again, make it look a little bit more nighttimey like so. All right, so the next step is going to be to bring in our moon picture. So I'm going to go ahead and click this link. I can right click on this and copy it. This is a high enough resolution picture for what we're doing, and I'm going to Control V, paste it in. And for this, what I'm going to do is take my ellipse tool, and I'm going to click in the middle of the moon and then hold Alt or Option and Shift, and I'm going to go from the middle out to make a selection of this moon. I got to get pretty close. I'm pretty happy with the way that is. I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard to bounce this over like so. And then I'm going to add a mask. This button down here in the bottom right corner looks like a rectangle with a circle. And then I'm going to position this in the top corner over here. Now I'm going to add a glow effect to this, and I'm actually going to add two glow effects to this. So the first one is going to be an outer glow, and I want this to be sort of a yellowish, like really pale, almost off-white color like so. And if you look at that's my color setting. My blend mode is set to screen. My opacity is set to 75. And my noise is 0, spread 0, and then the size right here is 192, almost 200. 200 is actually quite fine. Range 50, and then 0% on my jitter. But I'm also going to add an inner glow, and the inner glow is going to use that same color. It's just going to create more of a uniformity to this particular image. Again, 75% on my opacity. Blend mode is screen, 0 on noise, 0 on spread, 200 on size. You can see if you tone that down a little bit, it won't be quite the same. Oop, I'm still on outer glow. 1 second. So inner glow, same settings right here, except for my size is now, that's 200. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit so it's not quite so intense, about 130, 125, somewhere in that range. Go ahead and hit OK. All right, so now what we're going to do is bring in that tree silhouette. So we're going to go here back to Pixabay, and we're going to copy this image, and we're going to paste it into our document right over here, Command V. Now notice I just pasted it into the mask. So that's not what you want to do. So I'm going to press Control Z to undo, and I will click on this layer right here, not on the mask, but on the layer, and press Control V, and that will add it as a new layer. Now this is like jet black, and so it doesn't quite fit in. So one thing that we can do, because you're never going to have something that's like truly that black, So what we can do is make a color overlay in just a moment to adjust, to fix that. But before we do that, we're going to press Control J, or we're going to right click and then select a duplicate layer. And then I'm going to take my move tool right here, put on my transform controls, and I'm going to click from the top here and drag this straight down like so, because this moon would create somewhat of a shadow with it positioned where it is, but it has to be somewhat on an angle. So I'm going to hold the control button and I'm going to click and drag. So this is going to skew it off to the side like so. So I'm holding control as I sort of pull both of these corners to create that angled shadow that I want, and then I will commit that change like so, and then I'm going to adjust my opacity. And so one way to create a shadow, when there should be one, is to sort of use the object itself. I'm going to put the opacity at about 55%, and I'm going to do one additional thing where I'm going to add a blur to this. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and I'm going to put a Gaussian blur on this of about 5 pixels. By default, I'm going to go to 7, but I'm going to go 5. So I'll just sort of soften the edges, because usually, with this sort of hazy, diffuse light, you're not going to get super crisp shadows. All right, so now to make this tree fit in a little bit better, what we're going to do is click on it, and we're going to go to Effects, and we're going to add a color overlay, and then we're going to, you can see that's what it looks like. That's obviously not good. But what we can do is we can choose a color of blue, and I'm actually going to sample the blue from the image right here, and we're just going to sort of pull it up into a bluer rather than black area like so. I think it needs to be a little bit darker. That's a little bit too light. So again, we can just go ahead and we can select that right in here and then pull it down. We just don't want it black. It's going to be very subtle. I think that that's looking a little bit better. Alrighty, so now at this point, everything's pretty much done, but we could do one additional thing just for fun, where we could sort of tie everything together a little bit better, and we could do that by doing the following. I'm going to create a new layer right here. I'm going to grab my radial gradient my gradient tool and then change it to radial gradient, and the gradient type that I'm going to choose is going to be foreground to transparent like so. I'm going to change my foreground to black now, but then I'm going to click on this image right here, and I'm going to move the black to the right side and the white or transparent to the left side like so, and hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is on that layer, I'm going to click in the middle and pull up to the top corner to create this vignetting effect. However, before I say OK, that's a little bit too extreme, I'm going to reduce the opacity significantly. It just sort of draws our attention towards the middle a little bit. It sort of simulates the hood of a camera, so to speak. I actually want this even further down to like 20%. It's just like a real subtle effect, and since it goes over everything, you can see it sort of ties it all together. Okay, and so once you have completed all those steps, you can sort of fine-tune your adjustments and your levels. And so now we have turned our picture. If we go all the way back, I'm going to turn off all of these layers so we can sort of see what we did. And we took this image and we turned it into this nighttime scene. And we added in moon, put some glow effects, added in our tree and shadow, and then sort of added this vignetting effect to sort of bring it all together. Make sure you save this as a PSD, and then export it as a JPG and submit it to Google Classroom. Thank you.